In the story of America, there are voices that whisper, and there are voices that roar. Malcolm X was a roar. But Malcolm was not born a symbol. He was born Malcolm Little in Omaha, Nebraska, in 1925, into a world already determined to crush him. His father, Earl Little, was a preacher who preached self-reliance and black pride at a time when those words were dangerous. For that, he was harassed by white supremacists, and one night, when Malcolm was only 6, his father's body was found crushed under mysterious circumstances. Police called it an accident. But Malcolm's family knew better. His mother, Louise, tried to hold the family together, but racism was relentless. Employers refused to hire her. Welfare officials pried into her home. The pressure broke her spirit, and she was placed in a mental institution. By the age of 13, Malcolm was essentially an orphan shuffled between foster homes, branded by teachers as a boy with no future. And so, he drifted. To Boston, to Harlem, into the shadows of hustling, gambling, drugs, and theft. He wore zoot suits, slicked his hair with lye, and lived the fast life. But it was an illusion. At 21, he was arrested and sentenced to prison. Most men would have been broken there. But for Malcolm, prison was not the end. It was the beginning. Behind those bars, something extraordinary happened. He devoured books, history, philosophy, religion. He copied entire dictionaries, word by word, teaching himself not just language, but power. Knowledge became his weapon. It was in prison that Malcolm encountered the teachings of the Nation of Islam and its leader, Elijah Muhammad. When he was released in 1952, he was no longer Malcolm Little, the boy beaten down by America. He was Malcolm X. The X was more than a letter. It was a rejection of the slave name forced on his ancestors. It was a symbol of an identity stolen, but not forgotten. With his sharp mind, unmatched charisma, and fearless honesty, Malcolm X rose quickly in the Nation of Islam. He became its most powerful minister, drawing thousands of followers. To the oppressed, he was a prophet of dignity. To the establishment, he was a dangerous radical. While Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of dreams, Malcolm X spoke of fire. By any means necessary, he declared. It was a message America could not ignore, but power and truth often collide with conflict. Malcolm's growing influence began to overshadow Elijah Muhammad. Whispers of corruption within the nation, coupled with Malcolm's disillusionment, drove a wedge between them. And then came the moment that shattered everything: the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. When Malcolm commented that it was the chickens coming home to roost, he was silenced by Elijah Muhammad, suspended, betrayed, alone. Yet it was in that moment of loss that Malcolm's vision expanded. He left the Nation of Islam, but he did not leave his faith. He traveled to Africa, and then, in 1964, to Mecca. There, he saw something that transformed him: men of every race, every color, praying as equals. For the first time, Malcolm believed that racism was not inevitable, that unity across races was possible. He returned to America with a new name, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, and a new mission. His fight was no longer just for Black Americans, but for humanity. But America was not ready for a Malcolm X reborn. The FBI had tracked him for years, filling thousands of pages of surveillance reports. Death threats poured in. His enemies were not only in the government, but also within the Nation of Islam, who now saw him as a traitor. On February 21, 1965, in the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, as he prepared to address a crowd, gunmen stormed the stage. In seconds, Malcolm X was shot down. He was only 39 years old. The room fell silent. But Malcolm's voice never did. Even in death, his words echoed. You can't separate peace from freedom, because no one can be at peace unless he has his freedom. Malcolm X was not perfect. He was human, flawed, fiery, evolving. But he was fearless in a way that shook America to its core. He forced the nation to look into the mirror of its own hypocrisy. He spoke truths that polite society refused to say. And perhaps that is why his legacy endures. For Malcolm X showed us something timeless: that transformation is possible. That the boy discarded by the world could rise to challenge it. That anger could become purpose. That one man's voice, raw and unrelenting, could ignite generations.